Now, Ben, obviously the RBA kept rates on hold last time they met. How does the property industry basically comment on that? Do they think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Mentioning earlier, my perception from talking to agents, one of it's the consistency of the news now and the reporting of interest rates is so topical that essentially the discussion around interest rates acts as the calibration almost the more they talk about interest rates, the more you don't need to raise them. There's essentially just this sentiment effect of the discussion.
Just put the fear into people.
Yeah, you put a bit of fear in, and that's they're signalling to the market, and that's the way policy is set, and so it does work. And my thought on this is a discussion around raising interest rates in this economy to me is it's almost an act of vandalism to be talking that way to most of the economy. To do that to me would be misguided. I'd like to see interest rates come back, or at least a certain statement. What disappoints me around the statements the Reserve Bank makes is, well, on one hand we've got this terrible thing happening in Europe, on the other hand we've got this amazing thing in West Australia, so we'll do nothing. I wish they'd just come out and say, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep it on hold for a period of time and get off the fence. And people have heard it. People argue they'd rather just get off the fence, even if it raises interest rates, it's better. Just stop dithering, because it affects people. That uncertainty, people get anxiety from that uncertainty. I think the world will be here either way, and it's that I'd like to see a bit more direction. Down would be my preference, but either way, a direction would be preferable to anything.
Great. Joining me on the panel of experts tonight is Ben White from Ray White Property Management and Vanessa Wenham from Soul Finance. So if you've got a question or want to join the discussion, number to call is 1300 30 34 35, or send us an email to property@skynews.com.au. We'll be back in just a minute.
I know what you're thinking. About banks, anyway. You're thinking life's moving fast. You want your life to be simple. Cleverly simple. Bingo, you're plugged into everything anywhere in the region you want to be. You're thinking, I want my bank to be fully interactive, innovative, or in sync with you. And you know what? They're thinking the same way.
New Rexona Men's adrenaline responsive technology gives you long-lasting protection in extreme conditions. Even after 48 hours, new Rexona Men 48 Hours, our longest lasting protection ever.
In the northern tablelands in the New England region, this little town may just have something to offer you. Tune in this Sunday on Property Success to find out where I am, only on the Sky News Business Channel.
Welcome back to the show. Joining us tonight is Ben White from Ray White Property Management and Vanessa Wenham from Soul Finance. So if you've got a question about property and want some expert advice, give us a call on 1300 30 34 35. Now, as well as interest rates being positive and negative in some people's minds, so is the Australian dollar. So I guess, Ben, the real call is we've obviously got a pretty strong Australian dollar at the moment. What difference does that make to the property market?
It certainly has an impact. It's hard to measure. There's a lot of foreign investment, particularly in new developments. So it clearly has an effect, particularly if you look at the markets like the Gold Coast and other areas that will impact that. Although one thing we've seen, actually, there was a recent couple of months ago, we sold a cotton property in northern New South Wales for I think $14 million, and one of the impacts, the vendor was a foreigner, and the strong dollar actually helped them meet the price. So it has impacts on vendors, buyers coming in with a strong dollar, but it also helps vendors selling out who are foreign owned. So there's a bit of the swings and roundabouts on it. I think certainly it does put a dampener. Generally speaking, it dampens the sector.
Yeah. Now, there's always these things that kind of come in that if you're in a certain property sector, you've got no control on it at all. And one of the other things that was in the news recently was obviously the live export bans. Now, to most of us, it may not make any difference at all, but obviously to those with rural property, I assume it would make quite a difference.
It did make a difference, and we have quite a large rural business as well as livestock, and one of the things that we did see, even though I think the live exports only account for 3% of the market, just the discussion of it, that kind of sense of what's next, did put a dampener on it. I think cattle prices dropped. One of the good things is I think a cow and calf unit now is, I think, $1,400 we're seeing, which I think even a few months ago was as low as $600 or $700. And so that market's coming back. There's getting rain again, which is nice in the rural sector. So that's now really quite a really strong part of the network now.
Yeah, obviously coming into spring, the sun's starting to shine. Is there more properties coming on the market now? Yeah,
we're up 20%. Stock listings are 20% up than it was 4 weeks ago. It's one of these things that, as you'd know, that the market is like a plant coming out of the ground. People and listings beget listings. People go around, see a listing, and think, oh, I like that, so maybe I'll put my property on the market. And between now and the last week of December, there's going to be a lot of people in this country who may not be in real estate mode now, but are going to be by picking up a local newspaper or walking down the street. And it's just one of these wonderful things that come out every year. And if you look at the sales of this time of year, March, May next year, it just happens in this cycle. It's a funny way it works.
And even as a buyer's agency, then we've been telling people through kind of July and August to make the most of no buyers being around, and most people haven't done anything, and then literally in the last couple of weeks, then people are ringing up almost every day saying, right, ready to buy some property now. Yeah. And we're saying, look, it's still a great time, but it would have been great to have done it a couple of months ago.
Done your homework, got your financing lined up, understood what you wanted. And it's one of these things where but this is a wonderful part of the property sector. It's what makes it exciting is how people wake up. People are going to wake up on Saturday and realise, you know what, I like that house, I might sell, and by Christmas time they'll be living somewhere else.
And that's why I normally take August off and just say, there's no business going on, we may as well take it easy and have a holiday. How's it on the mortgage broking side? Do you suddenly see the fluctuations in the market?
Yeah, look, we also see hibernation, I think, during winter. And all of the buyers have come out in the last month, I believe. And like you said, they do wait to the last minute. Unfortunately, look, getting your pre-approval in place as soon as possible is the best idea. Even if you aren't actively looking that strongly, it's good to have it in place, because 9 out of 10 times I have clients that ring me on a Monday morning who said, oh, we weren't really looking, but we went for breakfast on Saturday morning and we drove past we drove past a house and it was open and we love it. And can you quickly organise our finance, because we want to make an offer and there's lots of people interested. So really having your pre-approval in place and making a dedicated decision to move forward is really the key.
Because even though we're into people making decisions and getting in there, making it over breakfast and making a rush decision isn't the best way to make $500,000 or $1 million for our investment, is it?
Yeah, and whilst it's a very romantic idea to find the property of your dreams on a Saturday, you can also risk losing that property by not being organised and not having your pre-approval in place. And that's really unfortunate, because whilst we can do things very quickly at the last minute, and we do our best to get things done, unfortunately there are some buyers who are ready to go, who have a cheque and a contract ready to sign on the Saturday or the Monday. So really being in that strong position is ideal.
And Vanessa, one of the hard things as well is to understand, do I buy a house or do I buy an apartment?
Yep.
When it comes to the banks, do the banks really care, or do they have different criteria for both?
Yeah, I think it's really important to consider what the banks are looking out for. So some of the things that the banks might be looking out for with houses and apartments is, look, this is not just for the bank but for yourself also. So make sure if you're buying a house you look to get a building report. The building report can obviously tell you a lot about the actual property and generally help you make a decision on whether you move forward with the property or not. The same with apartments. Make sure you get a strata report. Back to houses, make sure you look at the condition of the residence that you're actually buying. I had a client recently who was looking at buying a property which was incomplete, therefore it wasn't actually livable. Now, the option for these clients to go to any lender was not so true. Unfortunately, out of over 25 different lenders out there, and over 300 products, there's probably only 1 or 2 lenders that could actually help that client. Another thing to look out for is the zoning. and the usage of the actual property. Even though a property may look residential, it may have a commercial zoning, or it may even have a commercial tenant. Okay, so there's some things to look out for with houses. Back to apartments, as I said before, strata report. Moving on, if the property's under 50 square metres, this can sometimes be a concern for some lenders. So make sure that the property is over 50 square metres internally, and that does not include the garage and it does not include the balcony. So please make sure you talk to a broker when you're looking at properties that are under 50 square metres, because your options are limited and you may be asked to put a larger deposit in to secure one of these properties. Finally, with apartments, lenders will only generally like to take about a 25% exposure in any building. So if, for instance, CBA have financed most of the apartments in a building, they may come back and actually say no, they're not willing to take on another mortgage in that building, and you may need to actually consider another lender.
And this is where, to the average person borrowing money, they'd have no idea about that happening until suddenly it happens at the wrong time.
Yeah, and that's why it's really important to speak to a broker, because a broker can tell you which bank's policy your particular property or your circumstances are going to fit within. It's all very well for you to, shop around for the best rate, but it's not always about the best rate, and it's not always about the best offer. You have to have an understanding of what the banks are looking for too, and make sure you meet their policy requirements. It's really important that you understand that.
And so with these kind of 25% of the buildings, so typically in Sydney that's going to be something like the CBD or a Piermont. Melbourne it's going to be more the Docklands kind of thing, Gold Coast, those kind of things where there's all these towers. Yeah. They just want to limit their exposure. Yeah,
it could be because there might be an oversupply as well in that particular area, and therefore it might be a high risk for that particular lender to take on more than 25%. So you don't know these things unless you actually speak to a broker.
Now, obviously the same goes for mortgage brokers. Not all mortgage brokers are the same. Most people love them. Yes. There's certain things that certain mortgage brokers will do to go beyond what the average broker does. One of them is valuations, and we'll bring up a graphic on the screen as well. Can you tell me what a good broker can give advice to clients about to try and maximise their valuation so they can keep repeating?
So there's many things that brokers can actually help you with regard to your overall application, and one of them, like Chris said, is maximising your valuation. So some of the things we can actually do for you when we're looking at refinancing to get equity out to purchase another property is providing a recent sales history of properties in the area that are similar to yours that have sold. Adding value through renovations. So if you have done any renovations to the property, we'll make it very evident to the bank what changes have been made to the property and any potential rental increase or increase in value that we think that has obtained. You can also provide DA approved plans for a house that you are looking to build on later, or also you can provide building quotations, fixed price contracts of work that you're planning to do in the future, so that you can actually say to the bank, well, the property is worth $1 million now, but at the completion of our building it will be worth $1.3 million. So all of these things can actually help you to obtain equity from your property and increase the overall valuation by providing supporting information.
Yeah. Now, obviously the valuations make a hell of a difference, because if you can get your valuation up 5 or 10% on a $500,000 property, that's almost a deposit on another one. So
you can buy another property, so we like doing that.
Yeah, and certainly also to increase your buffer. So even if you don't want to use that money to buy the property, if you refinance, and I suggest refinancing every year, you keep that as a buffer in your redraw to then cope with any interest rate rises.
That's right, absolutely. It can be kept in your offset account. It helps you reduce the overall interest on your mortgage. It's also there in case you do any renovation or if you want to buy another property in the future.
You brought along some questions to ask the real estate agents. So again, if this is good advice to buyers that are going out there, what are some of the questions they should be asking the agents? Yeah,
so again, this is another one of my value adds with my clients. I try and educate them as much as possible throughout the buying process, so it's easier for them to buy sooner. So some of the questions I say to them to ask is, how long has the property been for sale? Why is the vendor actually selling the property? what is the buyer's guide on the property? You can save a lot of time by asking this question. A lot of people go out on a Saturday morning and they'll look at properties that aren't in their price range. Sometimes they're a lot higher, or they start following a property right through to auction and they get disheartened at auction because the property has gone for more than what they thought it was going to go for. So what I recommend doing is, before the Saturday opens, is actually ringing the agent and saying, hey, look, I just want to make sure the property is in my price range. Could you please give me your buyer's guide on that property? Is the seller negotiable, and have there been any offers? This is really important. Don't wait until the auction. You need to know if there are any offers on the table now, so that if you're pre-approved and ready to go, that you might want to make an offer before auction and secure that property.